Okay, let's start with this line right here. So remember when I was talking about a class and how that just means we're creating a class, that keyword? Well, when we create a class, we need a constructor to construct the object that is the result of said class. So if we are programming in a class-oriented structure, which Unreal Engine 4 is utilizing a class-based object orientation, we are defining classes of these objects. And it's really easy to get lost in all of these different words, but essentially a class is the implementation and an object is actually what's gets created during runtime. So when it gets created, we need a way of constructing, hence the name constructor, the class. So we construct the class by the constructor, and this one says it's got the name of our resulted class that we have named it. Now you'll notice that myActor.h and myActor.cpp are not called a myActor. They're only implemented with a myActor, and the file itself is just called myActor. This is important to note because you might be trying to look for something called a actor, but you will only see actor, and that is the same class except that it was implemented with the prefacing a, and that just allows us to, again, understand that it's an actor without having to go into the file. A naming convention. So our constructor has the name a_my_actor, which is the same as a_my_actor. So if I go into our implementation, it's setting the default values, and I have set this to being false, and yours will probably be true, and you'll probably not have it grayed out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create it so that it's similar to yours. So what this is saying, hey, this constructor will get ran when we create the class. So if we spawn this myActor in our world, in our game or application, this constructor will run by default. It will automatically get ran. And we're saying, hey, in this constructor, we're telling, can this actor tick? And what tick means is it is a method that gets called every frame. Now, if you're running 300 frames a second, your tick method will get called 300 times every second, or whatever your FPS is. It will get called that many times. So it's a varying function. It depends on performance of the system. So it says you can turn off this to improve performance if you don't need it. We're not going to really worry about tick, so I'm going to just put in false, and I'm going to gray that out, which essentially means putting it in a multi-line comment. Now, if you're running in Visual Studio, I'm not sure if this is in Xcode because I've never used it, but you're able to do this, which says it essentially grayed it out, and it puts this little block around it, and there's a little plus sign instead of a minus sign. Now this is pretty interesting because if I hover over this, it will show me what is in there without having to pop this open. Really helpful for if we had a bunch of things in here. It's really helpful for us to be able to have screen space in our code, because if this was like this, it would be convoluted for us to have to read through this and be like, okay, I don't really need this. So by graying it out, we're able to hide it. And so I'm going to do the same thing here. Oops. And I'm just going to take this and I'm going to put it at the bottom, and then I'm going to see. Now if I do this, you'll notice that it does the same thing, but up here if I click this, it shows the block at where the block is. And also you'll see that it says what it's extending from and the block. Whatever is after the class implementation name will get grayed out. Well, not grayed out, it's not graying it out, it will be compiled, but it's just hiding it. And you'll see that it says line 9 to line 28. And that's really helpful for helping us clean up stuff that we don't need. So down here you'll see 21 to 25. If I were to open that up, you'll see 23 and 22 and 24 lines are actually there, but they're just hidden. And we're going to keep it like that for now. I'll save this. But so we went over constructor, and now let's kind of look over this next bit. So virtual void begin play override. What is that saying? That's a mouthful, right? Well, yes and no. What virtual means is that if we were to extend AMyActor, it would allow this begin play function to be overridden. If we did not have virtual, that would mean AMyActor's begin play function is now unoverridable. And by being able to override certain things, we're able to include functionality in our extended class. So I'm going to keep it there. And what this, like again, what I'm saying is it allows this function to be overridden if we were to extend AMyActor. So what does this void mean? Void is essentially saying that this begin play method is void of a data type, meaning that it does not have a data type. It's void of a data type. So it's not going to return anything. We'll get into functions and what returning means a little bit later, but just know that a method does not return anything. You'll see that since constructor doesn't return anything, it doesn't have a void. It's not necessary to have void on the constructor or a return type at all, because by default it will not have a return type. So you have the begin play method's name and then these two curved brackets. These curved brackets allow us to have parameters if we were to pass some data into begin play. By default, begin play has no parameters, so there is nothing in between the curved brackets. The last word is override, saying that we are overriding this begin play method from actor. So if I go into my actor's implementation, you'll see void again, AMyActor's namespace, and the method's name, and you'll see the resulting block. Now inside, what we're doing, what this super is saying, hey, I want to call begin play method from the super class. Now the super class is the overridden, this bit, it's the extended's from's class. So since we are extending from a actor, we are required to call the begin play function from actor. Now if we didn't have this and we commented it out and we ignored that line to the compiler, what essentially would happen is the begin play would not get called on our extended from's class. So actor's begin play function would never get called. That's bad. We never really want to disable the functionality of our parent class. And also, we never really want to do things above our parent class's function. So what would happen is any lines of code that you type in before super begin play will get executed before we run actor's begin play function, which is bad. We don't want that. There are advanced cases where that may be necessary, but we're not going to get into that. Always type in your statements in or after the parent class's functions or methods. So you may have noticed that this function will get called when the game starts, if it's in our level already, or when it gets spawned. So this is a little different from actually the constructor, because the constructor is, yes, going to be called when the game starts if it's in our level, or when it's spawned, but the constructor is for us to implement the initialization of variables and such. So this is a way for us to execute some code when it begins playing.